As sports history fans, we often reminisce about the legends. Willis Reed limping onto the NBA Finals court, Kurt Schilling's bloody sock, Kerry Strug's courageous dismount, and so many more. These moments often define sports history. But what about the countless injuries that did not become legends, or careers that were derailed due to inadequate care? That's where this episode's sponsor comes in. Introducing to you, ILP Sports Consultants, your trusted sports injury partner, available 24/7. Brian Maelli at ILP Sports Consultants has over 20 years of experience in the orthopedic and sports medicine industry, and he has worked with athletes across the gamut, from youth to amateurs, professionals, in almost every sport played in the United States of America, accommodating athletes at every stage of their career. This adaptability ensures that ILP services are perfectly tailored to your skill level, no matter where you are in your athletic journey. With ILP, you are in control. Choose the steps that matter most to you. Diagnosis, treatment plan, recovery, or the whole journey. ILP services are tailored to your unique needs. Rushing for care is a common pitfall, leading to future problems. ILP Sports Consultants helps you make the right decisions, ensuring that you receive timely and safe care. And here's a bonus. Brian hosts the Injured List podcast, sharing insights and athlete stories you won't want to miss. Whether you're a concerned parent or grandparent, or an athlete yourself seeking guidance, ILP Sports Consultants is your beacon of hope in sports injury management. Visit ilpsports.com today. That's the letters ilpsports.com. ILP Sports Consultants, where your well-being is the priority and your recovery is the mission. Choose ILP Sports Consultants for a healthier sports journey, helping you get back in the game the smart way.
Blog Talk Radio.
Tonight we'll go back in time to seasons past, when 22 men graced the record field yesterday, fighting for one more first down, one more yard gain, one final score which would bring victory after 60 minutes of battle on the gridiron. Tonight, we'll explore the world of Gridiron Greats. Welcome to Gridiron Greats Football History and its Memorabilia on the Gridiron Greats Publishing and Broadcasting Network, in conjunction with Swick Enterprise. We're live from the Wallingford, Connecticut home of Gridiron Greats Magazine, and I'm Bob Swick, publisher and editor of Gridiron Greats Magazine, and I'll be your host for the show. Gridiron Greats is the only publication in America which focuses upon the history and memorabilia of the North American football game since its inception in 1869. We cover 140-plus years of football history and memorabilia, and you can find us on the web at GridironGreatsMagazine.com. It is at this time I'd like to introduce my co-host. He is a senior contributing writer to Gridiron Greats Magazine, a football memorabilia historian specializing in 3 World War II items, in particular Red Grange, and also Seattle Seahawk items, in particular Steve Largent. He hails from Portland, Oregon. Mr. Joe Squires. Joe, welcome to the show this evening.
Captain, thank you for a warm introduction as always, sir. Happy to be here.
I'm glad you're here. And unfortunately, I'm going to start off the show on a somber note. I'd like to inform our listeners and readers of the passing of Serge Mahaley. Serge was on our show on April 26, 2018. He was a good friend of mine here locally in Wallingford. He played for 3 championship Yale football teams in the late 70s and early 80s. He was the second Yale player ever to be a unanimous pick for the All-Pro team at Yale, Ivy League team at Yale. He was a star at Trumbull High School, and Trumbull High School here in Connecticut won the Class L division back in 1977. To me, he was a Renaissance man. He was involved in many different areas, many different things. We had a lot of very long conversations. He was 59 years young. He lost his battle to his liver problems. He was waiting for a transplant and never got one. And sadly, he passed on the 25th. So I'd like to extend my deepest condolences to the family. And Serge, if you're listening, Godspeed. All right, picking it up from there. Joe and I are going to talk about the latest BSC auction and what we saw, what we picked up, what we can gather from prices realized, so on and so forth. And Joe, I'm going to hand off to you immediately on this.
Friends of the program, Gridiron Greats, John Spano, Andy Becker, owners of BST. Their auction ended last week with much fanfare. There's advantages to being on the West Coast, and sometimes there's disadvantages. The advantages, obviously, most auctions close around midnight, which is about 9 o'clock, Western time. The disadvantage is if you go out to dinner with some friends and you have to hustle home at 8:30 and then jump on the computer and, catch them in your bids. And then the problem is if your wife wants you to put your daughter to bed and you run upstairs, put your daughter back down, and you come down and the auction is closed and you missed out on your favorite item in the auction, the 77 Topps uncut sheet with Steve Largent on it. That's the disadvantage of being on the West Coast. But these things happen. A couple things of note that ended that I was really keeping an eye on. When John, one of the owners of BST was on, I asked him what his favorite item in the auction was, and he said there's a photo of Pop Warner and Cornell football from 1892 that he thought was so unique and so one of a kind. He's like, that's probably one of the favorite things I've ever seen. So I bid on that and was, mixing it up a little bit. Ended up selling for $25.09. That price includes the VIG. But I thought that was a really good price for a 130-year-old photo of a icon like Pop Warner.
Correct.
Good looking photo.
Amazing price on that. That was great to see. What else?
Yeah, right next door on it. Right next door to it, one of the top 10 items in the auction. This one didn't get a bid, which surprised me. It was one of the oldest known Michigan programs. It was from 1881, Yale versus Michigan. Had a starting price of $10,000 and it didn't get a bid, which surprised me. But it kind of goes to show you. Programs aren't as widely collected as say cards or other photos, etc. Cards are mainstream. Photos, is one of those little facets of it. Tickets, another facet. Programs, another facet. Autographs, jerseys, helmets, football. You can think of about 20 different facets to collection, to collecting football. And when it gets into programs, if you're a Yale fan like you are, or a Michigan fan, this program is meaningful to you, especially if you're a Michigan fan. If you're not, then $10,000 is a lot of money to pay for a program.
Correct.
I was 1881.
I still maintain, though, that programs and media guides are still way undervalued and way overlooked in the hobby.
Absolutely.
And especially any programs that are found pre-World War II, I still maintain there's not a lot of them there, and I really believe the prices on them are way undervalued, severely undervalued right now.
Yeah, I've mentioned this before. I've quoted Carl Lambell before, but he mentioned in an article he wrote a long time ago. He's like, think of the paper drives, of World War II. Just the amount of paper that got sucked up in things like that. And I've always talked about house fires. I do a lot of work for insurance companies. I mean, I think of the house fires and the floods and the the moms throwing people's collections out. I mean, for a program of that age, it's had to survive a lot of things. I mean, just being stored improperly. If you just put that upstairs, in a chest and leave it, it's basically fragile. It'll chip apart. So I mean, there's a lot of things that could have killed this program in the last 138 years, but it was still a very fascinating program. Right next to that, I think lot number 15 was an 1888 N162 Goodwin Beecher, the first football card. Graded a PSA 1, sold for $1,673. I thought that was really cool. It was a really, really sharp-looking Beecher, but still just goes to show you the popularity of that card, even on being on the fringe of football. Like, we've talked about that card before. I personally don't own one. I don't ever really see myself owning one just because I don't. Yes, it's football. Yes, it's mentioned as football on the back of it, but it's just not one of those things that really is a must-have. You put the Mayo set next to it. The Mayo set next to it. Mayo set to me is obviously football, and therefore something I wanted.
And we talked about this too. The guy who's hoarded whatever they are, 18 of them, and he's always advertising them at ridiculous prices. That he wants somebody to buy 18 Beechers all at once. And again, obviously the guy is eccentric, or the gal's eccentric. And, what's the purpose of what you're doing is beyond me, other than to say I own all these Beechers. Well, that's great. I own a lot of football memorabilia, and you own a lot of football memorabilia. And, we don't go around and do something like that. So, I mean, there's no purpose to it whatsoever. So what that does is basically boost up any single Beecher sales anywhere, anytime you see them in an auction. And, I quite frankly thought that was going to run between 1,500 and 2,000. I was pretty much spot on with it, given the conditions. Because it is worth it as far as I'm concerned. I mean, it's a very good.
I'm the guy.
Very good.
Yeah, I'm the guy who used to own 1,000 Steve Largent rookie cards, so I'm certainly not going to cast stones at the guy who's trying to corner the Beecher market.
I pick up any Largents I see here locally because they're not found. And I tell everybody, guy in Oregon has them all. What's the most wanted 1977 Topps football card in Connecticut? Is Steve Largent rookie.
Steve Largent.
That's all I can say.
The most popularly graded card is, and it's almost comical. Yeah, I single-handedly ruined the pop charts in the 77 Topps. 35 Chickle SGC 96 Clark Hinkle. One of your boys, one of your Packer boys, 4,147. Very strong price for an SGC 96. That's one of those bubble cards. 96 is really hard to get crossed over into an 8.5. So that just showed. I mean, but that was a beautiful example of the Hinkle. 58 Topps Jim Brown PSA 7. That was absolutely one of the nicest centered, beautiful corners. PSA 7. It was an old flip too. And that went for $2,270. There's definitely someone trying to bump it a little bit because a PSA 8 typically goes for $3,000 to $3,500. So that's upper end of the PSA 7s. And then, as I mentioned, 77 Topps uncut full sheet, including the most sought-after card in 1977 Topps, the Steve Largent rookie card, $537. That's the one I came back down from putting my daughter to bed, and the auction had ended. And I had a few choice words for my friends John and Andy, ending the auction without sending their good friend Joe a text message. I'm kidding.
I was shocked when I heard you didn't win that sheet. I wouldn't even go near it. I just clicked on it once. I said, "Well, that's Joe Squires. I know that's where it's going." So.
Well, that would have made my third or fourth. I think I have two partial sheets with 66 cards, and then one full sheet with Largent.
Wow.
So it's accumulating, but still a beautiful sheet to have for 1977. Yeah. Somebody must have picked it up that didn't know me because they must have been like, well, most people know most normal
I'm surprised you haven't gotten emails anonymously from somebody who says I have a Sunday 7 Topps uncut sheet for $1,000 with the larger rookie on it. Do you want it? They're going to flip it.
Yeah.
Make some money.
Yeah. That's not heritage. They don't reach back out. So, but now a great auction. Some good other sports in there that shall not be mentioned. Just a great auction. Congratulations, John and Andy, on another fantastic auction. I think Mike Moran mentioned he had quite a few items in there too. It's just really good to see really cool, very thinly collected items hitting the auction house, circuit. It's just yeah.
Well, like I said to several people about this auction, it's a historical auction for the simple reason you have items from Mike Moran's collection, you have items from Mike Blaisdell's collection. The catalog itself is historical, just to hold the catalog and see these, like you're saying, very, very thinly traded, very thinly for sale items come up and are available to be bought. Truly, the provenance on these items is just incredible. So to me, it was just an amazing auction all around, and very strong prices. There was a couple. I just real quick, I want to look at lot 309. Was a 1962 Post complete unfolded box with 6 football cards with a Sonny Jurgensen in it. That went for $1,434. That was a great price, and it was finally getting some respect. Is the 62 Post serial set with its basically full size and small size box being collected. And those are amazing items that have survived that long. That's the way I look at it. And again, very strong prices. And the lot right next to it, the 62 Post serial complete unfolded box with 6 football cards. 2 of the cards were short prints. One for $1,314.50. So that was 2 great prices on those 2 items. I was very impressed to see those prices being traded. And again, I will say this auction for me tells me there's a lot of strength in the hobby. There's a lot of interest in the hobby. Hopefully there were some new bidders that came into the hobby and picked up some items for their collection or beginning collection. And it really bodes well for our end of the hobby. I think it's a great auction to see. And again, I'll reiterate, those people who are thinking about entering and collecting programs, media guides, and older yearbooks or older publications, to me, now is the opportunity. Now is the time to pick up stuff, because I honestly feel in 5 years from now, you're not going to see the prices you see today. I really don't. I think once the hobby matures again, a lot of collectors are done collecting their cards, their player cards, their player photos. They're going to branch out into the programs. They'll branch out to the media guides. There's not a lot of them out there. And contrary to what everybody believes, it's not like a card. Some programs, I'm sure, from the 1930s and the 1940s, there's probably a dozen or less that are in existence today. And where are they? We don't know. So it's something to consider, something to think about. And I urge anybody who's on the fence about it right now. Right now represents 2019, 2020 represents a buying opportunity that I don't think you're going to see in a long time. That's my opinion.
Oh, without a doubt.
So we'll see. Yeah. We'll see what happens in the long run on that. But again, congratulations, John and Andy, on that auction. It was a very strong
and
auction, good auction. What do you actually?
And it is good to see more and more of this trickle in. Oops, sorry, Bob.
What did you actually pick up in that auction? I know you got a few uncut sheets.
Yeah, I picked up the 61 Fleer uncut sheet. There was one other uncut sheet. I noticed Andy, it got mailed to me the other day, and I just dropped my check in the mail a couple days ago. That's what I love about those guys, too. And I picked up there's a Red Grange chocolate advertisement that went out. You're going to laugh at this, but that was a blank, advertisement that went out, and then local companies would stamp or ink their locality on it. And I've got about 5 of those now from different areas, with one of them being in Washington, in Aberdeen, Washington, that it's just one of those little esoteric things. Just this one chocolate flyer that went out, and I've just got it from different parts of the country. Just I could consider that for another the silly things we collect article, but oh well.
Right. Well, it's a nice piece. I mean, that presents well. One other thing to look at, there was a 65 Namath rookie PSA 6, one for $2,500, $9.50. And then the remainder of the set, all PSA graded 175, 176 of the tall boys, went for $4,740. So that's pretty strong prices for those. And for a Namath rookie in 6, that's a very, very strong price for it also. So it was interesting to see. All right, we've got to move along here, but again, great auction. We could talk about it for a couple hours. Great stuff. And I honestly say, again, study that catalog if you received it in the mail, because that is a historical piece to look at, and it's going to show you a lot of different things that have not been seen for a long time, believe me. All right, it's at this time. I'd like to welcome our special guest. He is a lifelong New Englander, the father of two teenager boys who are sports nuts like he is. He's been collecting sports cards since 1987 and has a great love for the hobby. I'd like to introduce Mr. Dan Bassett. Dan, welcome to the show.
Hi, fellas. How are you?
How are you?
Afternoon, Dan.
Dan, I want to start off by asking you, how did you get started collecting football cards, in particular Boston New England Patriot cards and John Hannah cards?
Well, I've been collecting since late 80s, like 1988, I think. I know my first football card I traded for my cousin's 1987 Topps Herschel Walker. That was one that I had to have, and it took months of failed attempts before I was able to pry that one from his grasp. So
I love it.
Yeah, so that was pretty cool. And after that, my next football cards were actually the Fleer Team Action cards. I remember picking up some packs at various gas stations, and I know they don't get a lot of love in the hobby, but I thought they were really cool when I was starting.
What year were those? There's the 76 Fleer Team Action. Are you talking about the 81s?
Well, they were published most years in the 80s, as far as I know. I believe the ones I picked up were in 88 or 89.
Okay.
I have some Hannah Fleer Team Actions from quite a few years, so I think it's, again, with them not being widely collected, I think people don't realize exactly how many years those were printed. But it was around 88 or 89 that I was picking those up. In fact, I can't tell you the players that were pictured, Joe, but I can tell you that in my first pack I hit a Seahawks card. I don't know why I remember that, but I do.
I think from that year I want to say was it a Dave Craig? I've seen him. That's getting a little late in my collecting realm. Was 88, 89.
Yeah.
But I think I've seen a few of them. I think I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
It might have been Dave Craig. It might have been Kurt Warner, not that Kurt Warner. The Kurt Warner, the running back.
The other. From Penn State.
And I could be wrong about the year too, because I snuck a peek in a Beckett book, and they only have them printed as late as 88. So it must have been 87 or 88, not 89. So.
Right.
So that's
1989 was the explosion year for football cards. So it took everybody by surprise to a large degree. You had the way overproduction of Pro Set, and then you had the beauty of Score, and then Topps had probably one of the worst sets they ever came out with in 1989. It's just bland, just a lousy set in my opinion. But again, traditionalists kept with the Topps, and they kind of shunned Pro Set and Score, and then they realized when everybody else and their uncle were buying Score and Pro Set, they just jumped in and started collecting it. You know what I mean? So it's interesting you were on a cusp year, 1987, which to me, 87 Topps set is still a beautiful set. The 88 Topps set is also very nice. So, in addition to that, because you had the Bo Jackson rookie in there, which still drives that set. So it's an interesting time period to start collecting. I find that very interesting.
It's at the time I was buying the new stuff, and then I find that the older I get, so does the stuff that I collect. I've moved backwards from there. I have very little interest in modern now, although I do have some Patriots cards here and there. But over the years, it's sort of been the mantra: the older, the better. Not quite like Joe. I don't dabble too much in pre-war, but the 50s, 60s, and then into the 70s is sort of my wheelhouse. Even though I didn't start collecting till a ways after that.
Dan, I got.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Didn't mean to interrupt. Go for it.
Well, I was just going to say, I think you asked specifically about the Patriots thing. I don't know when that became an emphasis, but it has been for a long time. At some point in the early 2000s, I started collecting Gino Cappelletti cards. A few years after that, I started collecting Andre Tippett cards. They both hold a special place with me. Tippett was my favorite player in those 1980s that we were discussing. Pretty late 80s with some pretty dismal Patriots teams, but Tippett was a monster, and he's still my favorite player of all time. Cappelletti was fantastic in his own right, and again, as I started to get a taste for 1960s cards, he was just a player I gravitated to because he was a Patriot and an AFL MVP and everything. So I actually collected those guys before I collected John Hannah. After a while, you know this, Joe, as a player collector, after a while, you start to run out of new things to collect. Not that I'm not still picking up new Cappelletti and Tippett items here and there, but it's slowed a lot. So I was looking for somebody new to collect. I think this was around 2014. I said, I need a new project. I'm not going to stop those projects, but I need something to scratch the itch. And so I started thinking, well, Tippett's a career Patriot. Cappelletti's a career Patriot. What other great career Patriots have there been? And it only takes about 2 seconds at that point to come up with the name John Hannah. And,
without a doubt.
That was definitely a nice part about collecting the Patriots, because in the 60s and the 70s and to a certain degree into the 80s also, they had a lot of guys that just played for them and no other teams. So you had a true nice player collection. You could add a lot of different things that would supplement it. So it's a nice team to collect. And now obviously today most younger kids and adult collectors are going for Brady's, obviously, because he's going to end his career as a Patriot, contrary to what everybody's trying to say now. But I really believe he's a Patriot.
I hope you're right.
I think he is. I can't see him going anyplace else.
I see him playing here in Kansas City.
I know the New England media, they gotta create controversy all the time. I mean, I'm used to it. I mean, I've lived in Connecticut all my life, so I get it on both sides. I get the Boston slant and I get the New York City slant, so I'm stuck in the middle of it. But I can't see Brady going anywhere. He'd be foolish to go anywhere. And if Belichick's going to coach forever, he's going to stay forever. I mean, the guy at his age he's an incredible athlete. I mean, I don't care what anybody.
It's hard to picture one without the other, isn't it?
Yeah.
Brady and Belichick. It's hard to imagine It's hard to imagine Brady without Belichick and Belichick without Brady, I think.
Right. Exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I get the feeling Brady goes to Kansas City for 1 year, like Joe Montana did.
No, never happened.
And what do they do with Mahomes, Joe?
Never. It'll never happen. If anyone,
I'm just kidding.
Just to satisfy you.
Hey, Bob. If I wasn't stirring the pot, I wouldn't be a good co-host. Dan, Hannah reminds me a lot of, just Steve Largent. In this day and age of free agency, to have a great like Hannah who played his entire career, at New England, it's classy. It goes back to show you just how it used to be.
Sure.
I always appreciated that about him.
Sure. I love the guys that spend their career with one team, and I love the guys that are blue-collar guys. I think Largent was one of those. Gino and Tippett, brought their lunch pail and I think Hannah's, the ultimate blue-collar guy. So it was sort of natural to collect him. You guys talked about Brady, and we're talking about players that spend their whole career with the Patriots. A couple of years ago, I did dabble with the idea of collecting Brady, and I did more than dabble, but what a monumental task that is. And,
oh, my gosh.
When I got to about 800 different Brady cards and realized that it was still just a drop in the bucket, and, realized that to knock off his couple of top rookie cards, I could buy a car. I actually purged about 98% of that collection. I've still got a few rookie cards, a couple of nice pieces that I like, but I think I sold close to 800 cards in one lump to a Brady collection. It was just too much.
I tried putting the Jerry Rice Master set together once. And obviously he's 86 to 2005, and so just the tail end of his career. Last 6 years is where you start getting, like 50 cards per year. And when I started off, it was like 200 cards in the master set, and I immediately was like 70% done. And then a month later, it's 300. And a month later, it's and I realized I was chasing this moving target. It hit 1,000, and I had 500 Rice cards, and I tapped out. And I was like, you know what? I can't. I need a target, not a moving target. It was just. All right, so let me just go back to the Jerry Rice basic top set. So I know exactly what you mean. But,
so now we all want to know, how many of those Rice cards do you still have?
I have his rookie card. I kept that one. So I really pared my collection down about 4 or 5 years ago and just started collecting what I like. I'm very, very happy. But you've got an amazing collection. I've seen a couple of the things you've chased after, particularly your John Hannah card, your collection. Just if you could whittle it down to a few favorite things, what would your top 6 be?
Top 6, okay. Well, I want to include Tippett. I said he's my favorite player of all time.
Absolutely.
And he played his issued cards. He has a Frito-Lay pre-rookie card, and other than that, it's really the meat of a Tippett collection. It's like 84 to 94. So we start getting in those late 80s, early 90s, a lot of cards. I think I've got at least 300 different Tippett cards, which for a linebacker, it's a pretty big number. So it's hard to narrow it down, but I would say probably the most enjoyment I got out of collecting Andre Tippett was I completed an autographed basic tops run of his. So I've got from his rookie card in 84 through his last basic tops card in 93, I've got all 10 autographed and slabbed, and that was a lot of fun to compile.
Yeah, I've always loved his rookie card because it's right in my favorite set, the 84 tops. So, a good-looking card.
You like the 84s, huh?
Oh, like is an understatement, Dan.
Yeah, I find them maddening. Simply as it's an attractive design, no doubt, but tilt is such a problem with that set, and it's a big bugaboo with me. If the image on there is crooked, and it's so hard to find 84 tops cards that don't exhibit some tilt. So I find it to be a real challenge.
Oh yeah, nope, you're spot on.
Yeah.
That and what do they call it? The white dots, the ghosting on it, and gum residue. I mean, it's got its problems for sure. But that's why we love them. That's why we collect them. So what else you got?
Well, one of the fun things, we've talked a lot about John Hannah already. One of the fun things in collecting Hannah has been how many different, I don't think people realize how many different Slim Jim items you can collect if you're collecting one of the players of the Slim Jim set. I mean, I've got the disc, of course, and then they had these, boxes. I think there are 5 or 6 Slim Jims to a box, and you would buy the box, and it had Hannah and Isaac Curtis on there. So I've got complete boxes. I've got panels, and then if you're not, that's not enough for you. You have the store displays too. The big box that the little box is sat in on the shelf, and I've got one of those too. But way too many Slim Jim Hannah items, but of them, the one I'm really proud of, they came in 6 flavors. So like I said, you really can dive deep on this stuff. And I've got all his the Hannah Isaac Curtis boxes, but the spicy box, I submitted them all to PSA. They're in rough shape, as you'd imagine, grease stains, paper loss, the whole 9. But the spicy box was really sharp, and it got a PSA 6, which if, listeners are used to collecting cards that are 9s and 10s, you might not realize to get a complete box and a 6, it may as well be a 10. I mean, it's a super challenge. So it's a sharp piece, bright red, good color. So I really like that one. So that's been fun. I guess while we're on the topic of Hannah, another card of his I really like that, you folks were talking during the BST recap about things that are undervalued in the hobby, and I think people are just starting to wake up to what we sometimes call pre-rookie cards of Hall of Famers and great players. And Hannah's got a playing card from 1972 when he was at Bama playing for Bear Bryant. It's 2 years before his Topps rookie card. I think people are starting to wake up to the fact that this card exists, and I'm very happy to say I've got that card in a PSA 10. At the time it was a Pop 2. I think an indicator that people are starting to wake up to that card is it's now Pop 6. In the span of maybe a year, it's tripled. So.
Oh my! That was that playing card set from that year, right? They had a deck of cards. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Exactly.
Remember that?
Exactly.
Yeah. And now
I'm trying to remember what card in the deck he is. He's a club. I know that. I don't remember what number he is. It actually, depending on who you talk to, some people call that Bear Bryant's rookie card in that set too.
Right.
Bryant had been around forever, but they don't issue a lot of coach cards. So So depending who you talk to, sometimes that's considered his rookie card, even though it was in 1972.
Yeah, and it's interesting to see on that. Just stepping back a bit to the 72 Alabama set, how many decks of cards were just broken up to get those 2 cards out of it to get them graded? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And just amazing. I still go to shows. I still see some singles every once in a while of lesser known players, and dealers are just trying to get rid of them. But I realize too they probably broke up the set or whatever just to get the Hannah and to get the Bear Bryant in them.
Well, I got to admit, I'm one of the ones that's guilty of that. I had eBay save searches for this card for years. It wasn't showing up raw or graded. I'm going back a few years now. This might be 4 or 5 years ago. It wasn't showing up.
Yeah.
And a full deck showed up, so I opened it up, submitted the Hannah and the Bryant to PSA. I didn't dump the rest. I've got them in an album, and I held on to the box that they came in, which the box was in really nice shape. But ultimately, I'm one of those people that was after the Hannah and the Bryant, and the other cards were sort of superfluous. So.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So the
the
Slim Jim.
Any other key cards?
Yeah, I was going to say
any other key card.
Sorry.
No, just back to you.
Okay, yeah, the Slim Jim box, the Bama card, those are probably my favorite Hannah cards. I really love collecting Gino Cappelletti. And I'd be remiss if I didn't say that I met Gino. Well, I wrote to Gino a couple times through the mail for autographs. Met him at a show, was astounded that he remembered my letters. My kids and I got pictures with him. They still say, they've met a lot of athletes with me. We go to a lot of signings. They still say he's the nicest athlete they've ever met. Continue to correspond with him through the mail for a couple of years after that. I have some nice personal notes from him and stuff. So I'd be remiss if I didn't point out that Cappelletti is one of the true, real gentlemen of the game. I mean, just a super nice guy.
Wow.
Yeah.
So in collecting his, my favorite item, I'm not sure a lot of collectors know about him. I'm not sure there's a high demand, but I think it's gorgeous. In 1967, he and a few other players had a endorsement deal with Caprolane Nylon. Caprolane was doing everything from golf shirts to ski wear, and you could mail away for these photo premiums. It's an 8.5 by 11 glossy black and white photo of the player you mailed away for. It would come in this nice folder with another 8.5 by 11 sheet that had a bio of the player and stuff. And I was really excited. I've got the whole kit for Gino. The photo is the same photo they used on his 1962 Fleer rookie card. So it's him with his leg high in the air, having just released a kick. And it's it's one of those items. It's not like most of the items I'm listing here. It's not necessarily doing this by monetary value so much as sentimental value. And I really enjoy looking at that. I really enjoy looking at that photo. An interesting footnote is some of your listeners might know Todd Tobias, and Todd.
Never heard of him.
Todd stumbled upon a photo that looks exactly the same as my Caprolane photo in every way, except at the bottom, instead of saying a Caprolane All-Star, it says an Allied Chemicals All-Star. And Allied Chemicals was the parent company of Caprolane back in the day. And after some prying, I was able to that migrated from Todd's collection to mine. So I have the Caprolane photo and everything that came with it, but I also have the Allied Chemicals. I guess you could call it a parallel to that. It's still the only one I've seen.
That's neat.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
So
Dan,
variations.
Do you collect anything else in football cards or football memorabilia?
I do. I try to stay focused on the Patriots, specifically the three players we've talked about. But I'm sort of an autograph nut too. That hasn't always been the case, but it's become increasingly so, maybe in the last couple of years. So I've got a few hundred different players' autographs in football. Everybody from Joe Montana to, absolute nobodies that you'd have to Google. If they played in the NFL and I don't have their autograph, I want it. It's not a main focus. I haven't made as much headway with it as I maybe could have if that was all I was focused on. But, I have a few hundred autographs. Almost all of them are on cards. I'm a card guy first and foremost. I don't have a place to display a bunch of balls or a bunch of photos. Autographed cards are a thing. I think I share a sentiment with a lot of collectors in that I'm not crazy about the new sticker autographs.
Yes.
I'd be lying if I said I had none of them in my collection, but I have very few. In fact, most of mine are vintage cards that were signed at a later date. I love going to signings. Bob can tell you, living in the Northeast, there's always somebody signing somewhere, so it's fun for my kids and I to go, meet a Logan Mankins or meet a Kevin Falk or somebody like that, and get them to sign a card, shake their hand, maybe have a minute chat. So we like to go to signings together, me and my boys.
That's cool. Yeah, that's something the Pacific Northwest doesn't have much of. Yeah. Check.
Yeah,
one
we're
more
a little spoiled
disadvantage
here.
being a West Coaster. Yeah, for sure.
There's
a lot of good shows on the East Coast.
For whatever reason, there's always been a predominance of shows. I've always said from New York to Boston, actually from Philadelphia to Boston. And again, a lot of our shows here, in the 80s when cards were taken off, you started seeing a lot of shows. And as shows phased out, you still see a lot of shows in the Northeast. You know what I mean? For example, you got the Shriner Show in Boston this weekend. Big show. Massive amount of dealers. You got the White Plains Show in White Plains, New York, a few times a year. In Connecticut, like I said, we have basically 4 shows a month a couple of them are basically just coin and stamp shows, but the other couple are still sports card shows. So it's just amazing to see how many shows still exist in our region. And next year, with the National being in Atlantic City, you're going to see a lot of East Coast dealers that you don't normally see at any other national or other show, other than like a Shriner show or White Plains, so on and so forth. So there's a lot greater availability than where you are, Joe, and that's too bad, because it's still fun going to a show. I don't care what anybody says.
Yeah.
Yeah. Does the Cranston, Rhode Island show still happen? That was a big one for a lot of years.
Say that again. I'm sorry.
The Cranston, Rhode Island show, that was a big one for a lot of years.
Oh yeah,
I don't know if that still happens.
Yeah, I forgot all about that one. Yeah, I haven't gone there in years, but I know that's still around. And Rhode Island has another small show. I forgot. It's not in, maybe in Warwick. I'm not sure, but I know Cranston's was a really big show for years. Actually, I set up there back in the early '90s one time, and there are shows everywhere. There are shows everywhere.
Dan, you've talked about, personal letter correspondence with players, autograph signings. You've got to have some great stories about, collecting football cards you can share. Those are both pretty impressive.
Yeah. So it's collecting has been a lot of fun for me. I got to say though, the biggest hobby high I've ever had happened just a couple of months ago, and I think you guys know about it. But I'm always happy to talk about it again. As a Gino Cappelletti collector, my white whale for 6 years since I found out about it has been his Eskimo Pie card, his 1969 Eskimo Pie card.
Wow.
That's a set that not a lot of people know a lot about. It's a pretty obscure food issue. To boot, the Cappelletti card is one of the short prints in the set, so it's super hard to find. For the first two or 3 years, I didn't even know what it looked like. You could Google 1969 Eskimo Pie Cappelletti and come up with no images. So it took a while. I had people hunting for me at nationals. I would go to local shows and shops, and they hadn't even heard of the set. Never mind had a Cappelletti to sell me. So then suddenly last year, after years of searching, one shows up on eBay, and it's gone within an hour. By the time I knew it was there, it was gone, and it was gone for about $200 less than I would have been willing to pay for it. So that was a real blow, Later in 2018, our friends at BST had, I don't remember, it was either a large lot or a complete set. That included the Cappelletti, but, we were talking thousands of dollars for the group of cards when I really only needed a one at the one. I suppose in retrospect I could have bought it, broken it up, resold it, made back a good portion, and kept the Cappelletti, but I didn't go there. So I started to think I'd really never own one. And then in late August this year, on one of the message boards that I frequent, I get there's no secret in the hobby at this point that I was looking for this card, and I get a private message on this message board that says, the subject line is, "I got you a Cappelletti Eskimo Pie." That's all it says. So, you can imagine that my first reaction was, yeah, right.
Huh?
Yeah, right. This is a very elusive card, and sure you did. And Tyson said, "Hey, I saw it on eBay at a very low price. I snagged it. I'll sell it to you at cost." Again, I'm thinking it was on eBay and I didn't know about it, but sure enough, I looked there, and there it was in the sold, and at a extremely low price, which again, I can't help it. I was still skeptical. So I reached out to a couple of people I knew who knew a lot about the set. One guy who I would say is probably the expert on the set, and shared some scans or the photos from the eBay listing. So does this look real to you? Once they said it looked good to them, then I started to get really excited. So I quickly, offered, said, yeah, I want it. Offered the guy a finder's fee. He said no. I sent it anyway. But, after 6 years of hunting, and even after the finder's fee, I got it at about 20% of what others had sold for. That's how badly this eBay seller had mispriced his card.
That's outstanding.
Wow.
Yeah,
wow.
and got it in hand. Again, a card I never thought I'd have. Got it in hand. It's gorgeous. It took 6 years, but it was worth the wait. And one note on the Eskimo Pie set: most of them were cut right off the ice cream carton. But there's right off the box that the ice cream sandwiches came in. But there's a rarer sticker version, and as if I wasn't fortunate enough, mine happens to be one of the stickers, which sell for a premium over even the cardboard version. So that was definitely my biggest hobby high for sure, and it happened just a couple of months ago. So
one thing
that's very
about
cool.
that sticker,
Yeah, I remember
that sticker version, I always threw out this theory that they printed the stickers for when they were sending the Eskimo Pie boxes to the locations, the local, like Boston area or whatever, and they would tell the people at the grocery store, pull off the sticker and just stick it on the box type of thing. I don't know how true or how incorrect that would be. It would seem logical, but again, you don't see many that are unstuck off the green backing paper. You know what I mean? So I don't know how true that is or not.
Well,
so that's
it's one of the great things about that set is it's an enigma. There's so much that's not known about it. I've also heard about the stickers that if you weren't buying a box of them at the grocery store, if a kid was buying one individually at a ice cream shop or whatever, they bought one and they handed them a sticker. So I don't know how truthful that is either, but there's a lot of theories and not a lot of concrete knowledge about the Eskimo Pie set. And it's a pretty cool set. If you're a Patriots fan, it's a real bear because there are 3 short printed stickers cards as far as I know. One of them is basically an advertisement that, hey, send in and get this swag. The other 2 short prints each have a Patriot on them. You got Gino Cappelletti with Dale Livingston, but then you've got Jim Nance with Billy Neighbors. And, of course, Nance was an AFL MVP in his own right. So if you're a Pats collector, the Eskimo Pie set is a real challenge.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Amazing.
Dan, you're. I've heard that. I want to go back to your John Hanna, collection.
Sure.
Just because Hanna does remind me a lot of just large, and you collecting Hanna. Just you're a player collector. So I mean, I know about Hanna, but I looked him up before the show. I just wanted to rattle off a few things. Well, first of all, the thing that first popped into mind when I saw you were on the show is I just remember some coach, and I don't remember who it was, mentioning it's like John Hanna was the smartest player I ever coached. And I just remember that testament, and I was like, okay, that's pretty cool. And it was, I don't remember what coach said it, but that's the first thing that popped into mind. So looked up a few things. Obviously, I mentioned before he played his entire career in New England. In this day and age of free agency, that's pretty cool. He was the 4th overall pick in the first round of the NFL draft. So 4th pick. He's one of only a few players to be in both the 70s and 80s all-team decade, which is pretty cool to think about. He was the first person inducted into the New England Patriots Hall of Fame. Number 20, listed 20 in the top 100 NFL greatest players. And he was named by Sports Illustrated as the 2nd greatest offensive lineman in NFL history.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was pretty cool. These are all, I mean, if you just think about it, and a very classy, quiet, cerebral player. Just not the kind of flash and stuff you see nowadays. And that's why I dig that you collect him, because he reminds me a lot of my guy.
Yeah, and the linemen don't get enough love in the hobby.
Without a doubt.
I think true fans really appreciate what a lineman brings, but that doesn't mean they necessarily collect their cards. I put a lot of stock in All-Pro designations, and Hannah was a first-team All-Pro 10 consecutive years. I haven't done my research to see how many guys can say they were first team for a decade straight, but it can't be a very long list.
There's not many, yeah.
Not at all.
Yeah.
Dan, what
some great accomplishments.
What advice would you give to beginning collectors?
Well, I think the most important thing is to find what gets you excited to collect it. I can't speak for all collectors, but I know that many have shared with me similar stories to mine, which is you start out and you collect a little bit of everything. And when you find that thing that you're excited about, for me, it's player collecting. It's team collecting, but even more than that, it's player collecting. That's a really great thing. It's also great for your budget because you can't buy a copy of everything, but you can focus on a couple of things. And so I would say find what you get excited about. It could be a favorite player or multiple players. It could be a favorite team. You could really like the Topps design from the year you were born and you want to collect that set. It doesn't really matter what it is, but having some sort of I'm trying to avoid using the word focus, but some sort of focus to what you collect. For me, it increased my enjoyment of the hobby exponentially once I got on the track of player collecting and team collecting. And I've purged most of my non-Patriot stuff, with the exception of some really great autographs like Joe Montana and stuff. But, that's another great thing too. If you stay focused, it really helps the storage dilemma. But I would say, finding what you're passionate about. Yeah, it helps your budget, it helps your storage. But really, it helped my enjoyment just exponentially to find what I really liked collecting and only collecting that. And so I think that's an important piece of advice for any collector, whether you're starting out or you've been collecting for 50 years. Having a little bit of focus will go a long way.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more.
Very true.
Plan what you want to collect, build your budget around it, and focus. I couldn't agree more. That's great advice.
We all stray. I mean, none of us are perfect at staying focused, and especially not at staying within our budget. I think we're all guilty of that. But
it's hard not to stray when you see everything everybody else is posting up. You're like, oh my God, that looks cool. All right, I got.
Yeah.
I'm just going to collect that one.
Yeah. But if you try, I really think it helps you enjoy the hobby a lot more. So.
Yeah.
Well,
everybody's been talking about this Eskimo set for the last, 6 months. And I just read articles, like Jeff Payne puts together, I just read these articles, and I've always loved the fascination of just how things came to be, where they were found. And so, it has taken every ounce of strength I have to resist diving into this, this Eskimo pie collection, the set.
Yeah. And Jeff is probably the most knowledgeable person I know about that set, and even he would tell you he doesn't have concrete answers to a lot of the questions that we were wondering about when it comes to that set. One last thought on Eskimo pie. Right after I landed my Geno, the BST, BST is sort of the theme of this episode, and their catalog came out, and they had a sticker strip that had the Capoletti, the Nance, and then I call it the advertisement, but the last three stickers in the set, the three short prints, and that did every bit as well as I expected it would do in BST. I mean, not including the VIG, it went for about $1,700 for the uncut strip of those three stickers. So that was, a Nance by itself on eBay this month sold for $720. So,
but I mean, as Bob mentioned earlier, I know we're getting a little late, but as Bob mentioned earlier, take that in the context. $1,700 is a lot of money, but in the context of one of the rarest, cards or triptych, in one of the rarest sets, that's not much, No,
and you're knocking all three out in one shot.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, we're almost out of time, Dan. I truly appreciate you being on tonight. We'll be in touch. You have a great collection. Keep it up. And
All right.
And congratulations, especially on that Eskimo pie. That's a great piece to pick up. Thanks for being
Took us
here.
right up to the
Guys.
wire,
I
Dan.
really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
All right, take care.
All right, we're in a strict 2-minute warning now, Joe. I'm going to hand off to you quick. What did we pick up on tonight's show?
Oh, man, I love talking to other player collectors. There's so many things that Dan said that just kind of, if you could, sense me smiling, through the program, it's just, I just dig it. What a classy guy, but, I've loved seeing his collection grow. So just really good to have people like that on the show.
And I agree with that 100%. It's, to have the enthusiasm to hunt for the card, to search for the card, pick it up, and pick it up the way you picked it up was really nice. The one area that I do talk about, as everybody knows, or most people know, I love oddball football cards. I've collected them all my life. The inserts, the food issues, so on and so forth. I miss it today because there's really not that much oddball being produced. But Eskimo pie to me is probably one of the rare sets to try to find, because again, how many people saved the pictures off a ice cream box? All right, we're down to 30 seconds. If you're not a subscriber, please subscribe to Gridiron Greats Magazine. Check out our website, gridirongreatsmagazine.com. Joe, any other final thoughts before we wrap it up?
If you're not a subscriber at Gridiron Greats, what the hell are you doing listening to our show? Subscribe. Jeez.
It's true. It's true. Anyways, thanks for listening. And we'll be back next week with a few more shows. Good night.
Hey there, sports history fan. This is Arnie Chapman, aka the Football History Dude, and I wanted to thank you for stopping by to listen to another episode here on the Sports History Network. Our podcasters are passionate about uncovering and sharing sports stories from yesteryear. And if you didn't know it already, we have over 30 shows across the network covering all sorts of sports history topics. In fact, here's a glimpse into one of our awesome podcasts here on the network.
Each week, the official Football Learning Academy podcast will take you deep into the history of pro football through interviews with players, coaches, or administrators in the NFL, as well as interviews with Pro Football Hall of Fame selectors, authors, and historians. You'll learn how the game evolved and important moments that shaped the sport into what it is today. And don't miss the Pro Football History Nugget of the Week. Listen to the official Football Learning Academy podcast on the Sports History Network.
How about that? I bet you're super hyped to go listen to that new podcast, right? Well, to learn about this show and all the other podcasts on the network, head over to sportshistorynetwork.com/podcast. Again, that's sportshistorynetwork.com/podcast. Head over there today to find your next favorite sports history podcast.